Apollo's golden bow. This was the divine version of an admin tool that could either bless you or ban you from the server of life. Forged by the god Hephaestus, it was pure celestial hardware. But its real power was the software. Apollo could use it to shoot arrows of devastating plague, wiping out entire towns that annoyed him. Or, if he was feeling generous, he'd fire arrows of healing to fix the mess. His biggest flex? At only 4 days old, he used it to slay the Python, a monstrous serpent. That's like a toddler beating a final boss on day 1. The golden bow wasn't just a weapon, it was divine judgment on demand. Artemis's silver bow. If Apollo had the golden bow, his twin sister Artemis had the platinum silver model. She was the goddess of the hunt and the eternal maiden who left everyone on red. Her bow, also a Hephaestus original, never missed its target. But here's the twist. Her arrows could also deliver a swift, painless death, making her a kind of merciful assassin. She and Apollo once tag-teamed to take down all 14 of Queen Niobe's kids just because their mom trash-talked their goddess mother. They literally deleted an entire family over one bad comment. It was the ultimate symbol of wild, untamable power. But while the twin gods were handing out judgment from afar, another smaller god was using his bow for something way more chaotic. The bow of Eros. This is the mythological weapon responsible for your entire chaotic dating history. Its power wasn't in the bow, but in the ammo. The quiver held 2 types: sharp gold arrows that made you instantly fall in love, and blunt lead arrows that gave you a sudden terminal case of the ick. He wasn't killing people, he was controlling the vibes. After Apollo mocked his small bow, Eros shot him with a gold arrow, making him hopelessly down bad for a nymph named Daphne. Then he shot Daphne with a lead one. It was the ultimate lesson in not underestimating the little guy. A weapon that proved the most powerful force in the universe isn't thunder, it's feelings. The Great Bow of Odysseus. This was the original Prove You're Worthy challenge, but instead of a sword and a stone, it was your dad's old workout equipment that no one else could use. This bow wasn't a weapon of war. It was a friendship gift Odysseus kept at home. Its only real power was being impossibly difficult to string, making it the ultimate anti-theft device for a kingdom. After 20 years away, Odysseus came home disguised as a beggar to find a bunch of dudes trying to steal his wife. They all failed to even bend the bow. Then Odysseus stepped up, strung it effortlessly, and revealed who he was. He went from zero to hero, rizzing up his wife again before cleaning house. It was the ultimate symbol of rightful rule, Heracles' bow. And then there was the world's first weapon of mass destruction, a deadly combination of archery and chemical warfare. The bow itself was a gift from a god, but Heracles gave it a monstrous upgrade. After killing the Hydra, he dipped his arrows in its toxic blood, creating a poison so lethal that the smallest scratch meant an agonizing, incurable death. In fact, the word toxic literally comes from the Greek word for bow because of this myth. The bow was so OP that it became the key to winning the Trojan War. The Greeks had to go back and apologize to the guy they'd abandoned on an island just to get him and his bow back. Talk about taking the L. Shiva's bow. In Hindu epics, the bows were on a whole other level. They were instruments of cosmic power that could threaten the entire universe. Shiva's bow. This was the personal weapon of the god whose job is basically cosmic demolition. The Pinaka was forged by the divine architect Vishwakarma and was so impossibly heavy it took hundreds of men just to move it. Its power? It could annihilate entire armies, worlds, and even the heavens with a single shot. It was the universe's hard reset button. In one famous story, the test to marry the Princess Sita was simply to lift and string this bow. Countless kings failed, but then Lord Rama, an avatar of Vishnu, stepped up. He didn't just string it. He was so strong he snapped the divine bow in half. The ultimate flex. Sharanga. If the Pinaka was the universe's delete button, the Sharanga was its antivirus software. This was the personal bow of Lord Vishnu, the god whose entire job was to preserve cosmic balance and keep everything running smoothly. Forged by the same divine architect, this bow wasn't about destruction. It was about protecting the good guys and upholding the rules of reality, or dharma. Its most famous story is when Rama, after breaking Shiva's bow, was challenged to string this one. He did it so easily that the other warrior god confronting him knew the game was up and retired on the spot. It was the ultimate symbol of righteous power, Gandiva. But the age of gods wielding these weapons was passing. It was time to hand down the cosmic hardware to the mortal heroes who had to fight the world's most epic war. So we have Gandiva. This bow was basically a divine gift with a built-in cheat code. It wasn't just made by a god, it was made by the creator, Brahma himself, and passed down through a whole line of gods before it got to the hero Arjuna. The Gandiva was indestructible, made a sound like thunder, and came with 2 quivers that provided an endless supply of arrows. He had infinite ammo. He once used it to create a shield of arrows so thick it literally stopped a god's rainstorm. The Gandiva wasn't just a weapon, it was a divine anointment. The universe basically telling Arjuna, "You're the main character. Here's the best gear, Vijaya." You'd think infinite ammo is the most OP weapon you could get, but you'd be wrong. Meet the Vijaya, a bow whose name literally means victory. And that's exactly what it did. It came with a simple, terrifying promise. Whoever held it in battle could not be defeated. It was given to Karna, Arjuna's greatest rival. In their final duel, Karna was absolutely wrecking Arjuna. But then, in a moment of pure tragedy, Karna's chariot wheel got stuck in the mud. He put the bow down for 1 second to free it, and that 1 second was all it took. Even a weapon that guarantees victory can't save you from bad karma and the worst timing in history. Oghuz bow. This was the signature weapon of the Norse god of archery and skiing, a deity who was basically too cool for his own myths. Unlike other gods with their flashy named weapons, Ullr's bow was a masterpiece of natural engineering. His home was called Udales, which is a dead giveaway, because yew wood was the real-world equivalent of carbon fiber for ancient bowmakers. His power wasn't a magic enchantment, it was just pure, perfected skill. He was the god of archery, not just a god who had a bow, a symbol of lethal craftsmanship from a time before loot drops and magic stats. Skadi's hunting bow. And then there was Skaði, a giantess who walked into the god's headquarters in full battle armor to demand compensation after they killed her father. Her bow wasn't a gift, it was part of her identity as a being of the wild, untamed mountains. She even tried marriage to a sea god, but she couldn't stand his place and he couldn't stand hers, so she went right back to her snowy peaks to hunt. Her bow was a symbol of her fierce independence. It was a clear statement that she was self-sufficient, untamable, and would absolutely not be relocating to the suburbs. But while the Norse bows were grounded in the wild earth, the weapons of the Far East were aimed at the heavens themselves. Oghuz bow. This was the bow used for a little problem of celestial pest control. The backstory is that the sky used to have 10 suns, and one day they all decided to show up at once, turning the world into a giant oven. So the gods sent in the legendary archer Hu Yi. Armed with a magnificent red bow made from a tiger's bone, he didn't just scare them off. He shot 9 of them straight out of the sky. He saved all of humanity. But the celestial emperor was super mad about his 9 dead sons. As a reward for saving the world, Hu Yi was banished from heaven. He was the guy who fixed a global crisis and got fired for it. Zhuanyuan Bao. This was the personal weapon of the Yellow Emperor, the legendary figure credited with founding Chinese civilization. This bow wasn't a divine gift. He built it himself from the ground up, using sacred wood from a special mountain and the horns and sinews of mythical beasts. It was the original nation-builder's toolkit. He used it in the foundational war of Chinese mythology to defeat his monstrous rival, Qi Yu, an act that allowed him to establish his dynasty and bring order to the world. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a symbol of civilization itself being carved out of primordial chaos. The Conqueror's Bow. This bow belonged to a man so legendary, even his gear became a myth. Zhang Yu was a real-life warlord whose strength was so superhuman, the stories about his weapon sound like a video game inventory. The bow's body was made of a ridiculously heavy fantasy metal, but the real star was the string. Legend says Zhang Yu personally hunted and killed a flood dragon, then ripped out its main sinew to use as his bowstring. This wasn't a weapon that was given to him by the gods. This was a weapon he built from the parts of a monster he defeated, a symbol of raw power earned through personal conquest. But while these Chinese bows were instruments of raw power and nation-building, over in Japan, the most legendary bows had a completely different job. They weren't for fighting armies. They were for fighting bad vibes. Yumi. This is Japan's version of a spiritual ghost buster. Its name literally means evil destroying bow, and it got that reputation after a famous archer used one to slay a demon that was making the emperor sick. But here's the twist. The real power isn't the arrow. It's the sound. Simply twanging the bowstring is believed to create a noise that scares away demons, ghosts, and all-around bad energy. It's less of a weapon and more of a ritual tool for spiritual cleansing. Today, miniature versions are still sold as good luck charms to protect homes, making it the original supernatural home security system. Azusa Yumi. This was another of Japan's spiritual bows, but this one got a direct blessing from the heavens. Its power was also in its sound, which could drive away evil spirits, making it a kind of ghost-repellent musical instrument. Its legendary status was sealed when the first mythical emperor of Japan, Jimmu, was in a battle, and a golden bird flew down to perch on the tip of his bow. That's the mythological equivalent of getting the blue verification checkmark from the gods. From then on, it was a symbol of sacred authority, a holy relic that proved its wielder was on the right side of history. The Bow of Arash. This is the story of a bow that fired a single arrow to end a war and draw a country's borders on the map. After a long conflict, ancient Iran and its enemy agreed that the new border would be wherever one arrow landed. The hero Arash stepped up to take the shot with a specially made bow. This weapon had a terrifying feature. It channeled the archer's entire life force into the arrow's flight. Arash drew the string and his body was literally torn apart as his soul merged with the arrow. It flew for days, finally marking the new border of Iran. It was the ultimate patriotic sacrifice, a weapon that didn't just win a war, it created a nation. Robin Hood's yew-bow. This wasn't a magic weapon forged by gods, it was the people's weapon. The yew longbow was the real-world superweapon of the medieval English commoner, and in the hands of Robin Hood, it became a symbol of justice. It was the great equalizer, a tool that allowed a regular guy to challenge armored wealthy nobles from a distance. The most iconic story is the archery contest where, to win, he fired his arrow and split his rival's arrow already in the bullseye. The original impossible trick shot. The bow became a symbol of defiance against tyranny, proof that with enough skill you could fight the power and give the rich a much-needed reality check. Failnaught. This was the signature weapon of Sir Tristan, the Arthurian knight who was basically the main character of a medieval soap opera. Its name, Failnaught, means never fails, and it was a magical bow crafted by ancient druids. It came with a terrifying set of stats. It had perfect accuracy, its arrows could pierce any armor, and its wounds were nearly impossible to heal. It was basically aimbot in a world before video games. But it was wielded by a hero who was forever caught in a tragic, doomed love affair. Failnaught was the bow that never missed, wielded by a guy who couldn't seem to catch a break. Bow of Legolas. And then there's the bow that created the fantasy archer archetype for the entire modern world. Legolas, the elf with superhuman agility, was gifted a new longbow by the Lady Galadriel, strung with a strand of her own hair. His archery was less of a skill and more of a superpower. He could shoot a giant flying monster out of the sky in total darkness, guided only by its sound. He made impossible shots look effortless. The bow of Legolas was a symbol of elven grace, a kind of ancient, otherworldly perfection that made every human archer who came after him look clumsy and slow by comparison. Bow of Katniss Everdeen. This bow didn't come from gods or elves, it came from the woods. Katniss Everdeen's first bow was a simple tool she used to illegally hunt squirrels to feed her starving family. It was a weapon of pure survival. But when she was thrown into the brutal Hunger Games, that same skill turned into a tool of defiance. The bow became her signature, and as she became the Mockingjay, the face of a rebellion, the image of the girl with the bow became the revolution's logo. She went from hunting for dinner to hunting a tyrannical government. It was proof that the most legendary weapon isn't one that's given by the gods, but one that inspires ordinary people to fight back. Bows of Hawkeye and Green Arrow. These are the weapons of the two guys who are brave enough, or crazy enough, to bring a bow to an alien invasion. Hawkeye and Green Arrow are the humans on teams of literal gods and monsters. So how do they keep up? With their insane arsenals of trick arrows. They have an arrow with a grappling hook, an arrow that explodes, an arrow that deploys a net, an arrow that hacks computers. Whatever the problem is, They probably have an arrow for that. They represent the peak of human ingenuity, the idea that you don't need superpowers to be a hero. You just need to be smarter, more prepared, and have a very, very creative quiver. Bow of Aloy. This bow comes from a future where civilization has collapsed and giant robot animals rule the world. Aloy's bow isn't a simple wooden stick. It's a piece of post-apocalyptic engineering. She hunts massive, futuristic machines, then salvages their high-tech parts, their armor plating, their power cables, their synthetic muscles to craft her weapons. It's one of humanity's oldest tools, built from the technology of a world that destroyed itself. It's a perfect symbol of humanity's resilience, the ability to take the ruins of the past and build the tools you need to fight for a future. Bow of Jonathan. This was a legendary bow whose greatest moment wasn't in a battle, but in sending the Old Testament's most critical coded message. Jonathan's best friend David was on King Saul's most wanted list, and Saul also happened to be Jonathan's dad. To warn David without getting caught, Jonathan used his bow. He'd go out to practice and shoot arrows near David's hiding spot. If he told his servant the arrows were on this side, David was safe. If he shouted they were beyond, it meant get out of the country right now. It was a symbol of their legendary bromance, a life-or-death message delivered by archery. The bow of Neith. This was the weapon of an Egyptian goddess so ancient she was practically a founding member of the universe's board of directors. Neith was a goddess of creation, war, and wisdom, and her personal brand logo was two crossed arrows over a shield. Her bow was a terrifying weapon that defended Egypt, but it also symbolized her power to weave fate itself. She was so respected that when the gods Horus and Set had their epic 80-year-long family drama, Neith was the one they called in to finally settle it. She was the divine mediator with a weapon that could end you just as easily as it created you. But while some bows settled divine disputes, one legendary bow was used for a more down-to-earth purpose, organizing a whole empire. The golden bow of Oghuz Kagan. This bow didn't slay a single monster, but it did create the world's first corporate flowchart. Oghuz Kagan, the legendary founder of the Turkic peoples, had 6 sons and an empire to organize. So, in his old age, he used a golden bow for a political lesson. He broke the bow into 3 pieces and gave them to his 3 older sons, saying they were the rulers. Like the bow, they give the orders. Then he gave 3 silver arrows to his 3 younger sons, saying they were the commanders who must obey. It was a legendary weapon that wasn't used to conquer a nation, but to structure it, proving that sometimes the most powerful tool is a clear chain of command. If you enjoyed this, stick around for the next one. And hey, subscribing wouldn't hurt.